with me.
Hello, ladies. How you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having us, Sam.
All right. Hey, thanks for showing up here. And that's kind of what we're getting into in a second. I don't know if they warned you. We are so grateful to have you here with us on the podcast that we do something called the over the top intro. Before any interview starts, we have to do that. We have to butter your bread. Is that okay if we do that? Is that okay if we
Yeah,
introduce you
go
to the
for it.
world and our audience?
Yeah, please do.
Let's
Yeah.
get into it. My next guest is an award-winning director. You may know her from films like Passage, the Lego Movie 2, the second part, and The Parallel. And right next to her on this Zoom screen is an accomplished writer, art director, and the co-founder of Supernova Design. And you may know her from her work as the new normal and what we are here to talk about today. Creatures of Chaos making its world premiere at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival on May 3rd at 9 p.m. Asavari Shaivalini Kumar, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Sam. Thank you
much.
for having us.
Hey, for starters, I practiced your names because during all of that, I did not want to butcher it. I just didn't. I did good, right? I did good.
Good. Yeah, you did
I'm
good.
dead serious. That was like 5 minutes of practicing to not to. But seriously, I come in with a tad bit of levity because Creatures of Chaos. This was a great short. I like it because you're watching four people deal with mental health throughout their specific journeys, and I get it. It hits home. I don't know if you see it in the back. I am a Lions and Pistons fan, so I've had my share of battling with mental health before. So I'm curious. Um, why was it so important? How did this idea come about?
Yeah, so I don't know if you can tell, but Shai and I are related. Shivalini is my younger sister. The I like to go all the way back to, us growing up in India and our sort of experience with mental health struggles. It was often dismissed and met with like stigma, shame, or silence. And this cultural silence around mental health shaped both our worldviews from a young age. And although mental health challenges have always existed, particularly after the pandemic, they started to feel more visible and urgent. And Shavalini lives in Denmark. I live in the US. We're both immigrants in these countries. And so we have extra hoops that we have to jump through to sort of, go about our day to day. And so post the pandemic, to sort of ground myself, I turned to pottery, ceramics, teaching and mentoring to connect with community and, find a sense of play. I began to make these blobby clay creatures. You can see some of them behind me. And these were kind of like physical manifestations of my own emotional chaos. So I started calling them creatures of chaos. And then I started sharing these creatures at pop-up markets around Los Angeles, and it led to a lot of interesting conversations with people about their own emotional struggles. And seeing how strongly people resonated with the creatures kind of inspired Shai and me to develop a story that explores, stigma around mental health, importance of vulnerability, and just the healing power of community. So that's kind of where the idea started to take shape, and we decided to explore it as a film.
Okay. Um, Now when you hitting super serious conversations such as mental and emotional health, you guys did it in animation. Usually animation is more like a cartoon form. Everyone's kind of happy and you don't take serious matters. What was the idea to put it in such kind of I don't want to say juvenile, but it why was it so important to go on more animation?
Well, I think we just looked at animation as a medium. I think anything could have been our medium, but animation because we felt like this was also like artistic therapy for us. When we're sort of going through the process of coming up with the story, there's, as you're saying, there's a lot of heavy themes in there. So why not use a medium that is optimistic, that is lighthearted to convey this message, to make it very age agnostic? Especially because as you see, and as Asa mentioned, that it a lot of it came from like her pottery work, and some of the creatures are also informed by like the feelings themselves. We just felt like animation would be just the right way forward for us, other than the fact that it's like our expertise and we often tend to make films and express ourselves through animation. But we felt like for this particular topic, it was just the right way forward, and it would transcend a lot of audiences if we would take that approach.
And to add to Shai's point, I think animation, like you rightly mentioned, tends to be something that has a lot of levity, a lot of playfulness, and it was kind of the right choice for dealing with heavy
Oh,
topics.
excuse me.
Design was also informed by that because we did not want to take something serious and overload it with something more serious visually, so it becomes really hard to digest. We wanted to create something accessible, playful, something that doesn't push you away. And in the story, we also make a really sort of intentional point to not villainize or demonize any of these sort of emotions or characters. There's no protagonist or antagonist. They're just sort of people going about their life. So that those were all very intentional choices. And removal of dialogue and using sort of like a really simple, playful design, partially to sort of keep it aligned with the way clay is. It's sort of soft, malleable, very much like emotions and feelings are.
Right.
Part of the design choice was to do with that, and the other part was that the simpler and more accessible it is, the more sort of abstract space it steps into, and the more you're able as an audience to project your own experience onto it.
And I like that because no words, no dialogue, I should say, in this, and you convey those emotions of each character and what they're dealing with, I guess, like sounds. There were sounds, but not like straight up dialogue. So yeah, we totally understand. And there was a nice little shout out to the party thing. I hope I'm not giving out some towards the end
Okay.
where it was a nice little shout out. But what was the most challenging part about making this? Because you're overtaking something super serious. You did it in a way, you conveyed it to people, didn't use words. But what would you say was like the most challenging thing about this project?
Well, I think for me, I can share my experience, and Asa, you can share what it was for you. As you're saying, I think it is a very serious topic, and we wanted to do justice to it, and also just make sure that it doesn't feel too dilute. We, of course, had a idea of actually writing it like a poem first, a little bit in the realm of like how The Nightmare Before Christmas by Tim Burton has
Okay.
been done. We thought that maybe that would help sort of explain it a little more. So we did have a bit of a journey in terms of how do we approach the narrative of this, while still staying true to the story itself. And then on the artistic side of it, on the design side of it, I think a very big challenge was coming to the conclusion of going 2D animation all the way, because previously we were actually thinking of using augmented reality and projecting these creatures in actual spaces. And we actually went halfway through production. Many months of work was put into it, and thinking that that's how we want to make it. We want to tether it to reality and put it in actual people's homes and spaces. But then we started feeling that it wasn't doing justice to the creatures themselves, which are like these, which are sort of like born out of these feelings, right? So they were starting to feel very constrained, and we did like a whole 360 shift to making a new design style, which is where which is where we ended up with this sort of like very collage, very rough, raw style that we felt really drove the message home, and it fit really well with the characters. So both on the story front and also like on the visual front, we had some obstacles during the way that we had to like discuss a lot and overcome and just take some risks.
Yeah, and to add to what Shai is saying, I think now looking at it in hindsight, at the moment it was very challenging to sort of flip the traditional animation pipeline on its head and design backgrounds for characters and sort of like piece them together and create this sort of fragmented look. We're very happy with what we ended up with, but I think in some meta way, like the process, the messy process of going from beginning to end is very similar to, you know, the process of coping with mental health challenges or challenges of any sort, right? You take a couple of steps forward, you take a couple of steps back, everything blows up, comes back together, and in the end, you sort of like learn something about yourself along the way. So in some ways, the process of the film was very reflective of the process of learning to cope with mental health challenges. So that was kind of like an interesting learning towards the end.
Um, I do say this. The world premiere is on the 3rd, few days
Mhm.
away.
Yep.
What do both of you, or if what do you want the audience to take away from this film?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, right? In some ways, it is true that mental health is being talked about more in mainstream spaces. So it is a positive step, but not everyone experiences that visibility equally. For a lot of immigrant communities, communities of color, and working class spaces, mental health conversations are still very much shaped by stigma and silence. And Creatures of Chaos was created from that reality to show that being vulnerable, finding community, and making space for emotional struggles is still like a vital ongoing process, and it's not a finished conversation. So we just want people to take away feelings of being seen and heard, and hopefully inspire them to want to have more of these conversations, to hold space for these conversations, and know that there are safe spaces to have these conversations. And really, like, given the current political scenario, our survival really depends on community vulnerability and creative expression. And the film really intends to honor that tradition. So I hope people take that away with them when they watch the film.
Okay, Shy.
I think it's very similar for me. I feel like if we can get people started to talk about this, to talk about the importance of vulnerability and to hold space for each other, I think then we would have done our job with this film.
Okay. Well, ladies, I know we don't have a ton of time. We're actually up against it. I love the film. I wish you the best of luck on the premiere. I hope that you help people. If there's only one person deal with whatever they're dealing with, and that one person may be me at roughly around 8 o'clock in Game 6 tonight. So I may be reaching out to you. Uh, um, I may need your help tomorrow, depending on how this game shakes out. But seriously, thank you so much for just jumping on the podcast, talking about the film is, and I just wish you both the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you
Thank you
so much,
so
Sam.
much.
It was lovely
Oh, and
talking
by
with
the
you.
way, you're welcome back anytime if you want to chop it up, talk
Oh
about
yeah,
whatever you want to talk about.
100%. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Have a great one.